Hello! So today we're going to have a very quick look at something new in Flight Simulator that I've been working on. So although we are parked on the ground here at Wickham Air Park in the Cessna 182 from Coronado, we'll come back to this in a few moments. We're going to go over to a web browser. We're going to take a look at the Virtual Flight Online website. So if we scroll down the website, you will see in operations we've got the airline we used to run, but now next door to it there is a brand new airline that we are building out right now, and you can actually go and join it now for free. So if we go and look at this in the documentation that we've provided, you can obviously, there's a link there to go and visit the airline. We'll do that in a moment, but let's go and have a look through some of the preparation materials we put on the web for you to have a look through that cover most of the areas of the airline to get you up and running really quickly. So the beginner's guide takes you through registering an account with everything you're going to need to provide, installing an ACARS client. So there's a piece of software you can run alongside the simulator that watches what you're doing in the simulator, so you can track your flights accurately. There's the story about starting as a student pilot if you're not carrying any hours over from other airlines. There's the story of recording your first flight, so a step-by-step to walk through, recording a tour flight, choosing the different kinds of flights, so using things like Simbrief, starting flights, ending flights, what to do if flights go wrong, like creating manual PIREPs, the awards you can win, and how to get help. ACARS covers all of the topics around installing the ACARS client. So as I said, it's a piece of software that watches your aeroplane, and it does things like, or actually we'll get to that, we're going to get to scoring in a moment, but it basically monitors how you are flying the aeroplane. We've got flights, so there's lots of different types of flights available. There's scheduled flights and tours and free flights, and they're all numbered differently, so that's all explained to you. There's a rank system, a rudimentary rank structure. So when you first join, you are a student pilot, and when you've filed enough hours, you move up from rank to rank. And as you do so, more aeroplanes become available for you to choose within the airline to do your flights with. So if we go and look at the fleet, you can see that a student pilot gets some very basic aeroplanes, private pilots get all of the GA planes, Class D gets the transport planes, Historic gets some historic aeroplanes, Class C gets the business jets, Class B gets the commercial airplanes, and Class A gets the intercontinental jets. So we've put most of the common or favourite aircraft from the simulator in already. Obviously everybody's going to want their favourite aeroplane. We will be adding to this over time, but we might not add everything. Okay. So I mentioned scoring when we were looking at ACARS. So while you're flying along, ACARS will actually monitor some basics around how correctly you are operating the aeroplane. So it's going to be looking at things like taxi speeds, your roll and pitch angles, G-forces, speeds, stalls, hard landings. It even looks at soft landings as well, whether you're using reversers correctly. And it will look at your light configuration of the aircraft as well through the various phases of a flight. But having said that, Flight Simulator is not great at reporting to external software how the lights are or how you've configured it. And obviously not all aeroplanes have all the types of lights available. So it's really just a bit of a guide, and don't take too much of it to heart about what it's saying, because it might say you haven't got strobes on when your aeroplane doesn't have strobes, for example. Okay, so let's go and have a look. Actually, before we get into the simulator, let's go back into the front page of here and go and visit the airline. So when you visit the airline, you get a live map with anybody that's flying right now, and you can see details of those flights on the list here. You get some news and some leaderboards about recent flights that's updated every night. There's a dashboard that relates specifically to you that again shows people that are in the air right now. It shows your last pilot report. So I've just flown, I was actually doing a test for this flight from Wickham to Elstree. I've been doing lots of test flights recently. You can see other people that have got active bookings going on. You can see the last airfield you landed at, what the conditions are like at that airfield. Yeah, so there's lots and lots of information to go on straight away. If you look in flight operations, you've got a database of flights. You've got tours. Actually, before we get to that, we've got the roster of pilots, we've got the list of airlines, we've got the ranks, the awards you can win, and so on and so forth. There is going to be a pilot shop at some point in the future. Haven't implemented that yet, so you'll be able to, you can earn pretend money by flying correctly. and then you can spend that pretend money, or you will be able to one day, in the pilot shop. We're not quite sure what we're going to offer in the shop yet. It might be liveries, might be all sorts of things. So flight operations is a database of scheduled flights, so let's go and have a quick look at that. So you've got obviously a huge list of flights. Now this will be entirely dependent upon, you can see there's 400 pages of them. This will be entirely dependent on your rank. The higher you rank, the more aeroplane types you can fly, and the scheduled flights are all tied to aircraft types. You will see there are tour flights mixed in with them. So if we go, for example, and search for a given airport, so EGSS would give us Stansted, and we can see, if we click find, it will go and trawl through that database of thousands and thousands of flights. So here we get the flights that leave Stansted, so they're all leaving from Stansted, yes? And we can actually see them on a map, so we can click flight map, and you can zoom in on this, obviously, so it's actually a huge big mess. So if we go and choose Stansted specifically, that was obviously showing all of the flights. If we show Stansted specifically, you can see the inbound and the outbound flights at Stansted, and again there's hundreds of them, or 46 each way in this case, and you can see those on a map. So they're going to various different places all over the world. If you go and click on one of these flights, you can either do it here or in the table in the website. You can go and look at that specific flight, and it will give you, the weather at the departure and arrival airport, and you get the flight plan there. You can generate a Simbrief flight plan straight from here. I'll do that in a moment just to illustrate it. But if we come back to Stansted briefly, it's worth pointing out you've got that flight map we just showed you. You've also got a live weather map from Windy showing you what's going on with the weather. You've got the text version of the weather report. You've got obviously the map that we already saw, and you can drag this around and zoom in and out so you can get a really good close-up look at Stansted with the various taxiways and things highlighted. It's very, very good. Okay, so I said we were going to go and pretend we'd do one of these flights just to illustrate it. So we'll pick this one here, right the way halfway across the world. So say we were going to go and do this flight. We're not actually going to, but we'll generate the Simbrief flight plan. So having selected it, these are the airplanes that fly this route. So we'll go and pick the 747, for example. Proceed to flight planning. And you can see this is the pre-filed plan for Simbrief. So you can choose some options here and change things if you need to. And you can generate Simbrief. So it will go and connect to Simbrief, generate the flight plan for you. And when it's done it will update this screen, so we'll give it a few moments. There it goes. So we've now got the generated Simbrief flight plan directly inside our airline. So as if we are going to go and fly it. If we want to look at it in detail, if we haven't got Navigraph or something, we can go and actually open SkyVector, and you can see your plan on here. And actually SkyVector's made a complete mess of that one, hasn't it? It must have a duplicate waypoint. Just shows that the systems aren't perfect. But what we could do is pull open the graphics that Simbrief gives us, and obviously we can then send this straight to ACARS. Obviously, because it's also in Simbrief, we can pull it straight into the flight management computer of the big jets as well. Okay, so we're not actually going to fly that plan. We're just going to do a free flight today just to illustrate how the ACARS system works. But you can see the way scheduled flights and airports, it's got all of the flight simulator airfields in the database already. So there'll be no looking for airfields that don't exist unless they are a custom one that you've added to your own simulator. All of the stock airfields are already built into the airline. So we can go and look at tours as well. So there's tours all over the world. So you're going to pick them based on the aircraft type that you're qualified to fly. So if you are into the big jets, you could go and perhaps follow the F1 calendar. If you want to do a GA tour, you could do something like a tour around New Zealand. And there's obviously lots and lots of legs there, and you can see a tour map of where it goes around the island. If you want to see a bit nicer map, you can do that up here. So we can go, that's the National Geographic map. So you can see that, and you can hover over any of those legs and go and click on one and see the details for that leg in exactly the same way as you could earlier on. So that pulls up the map of the local area, and obviously, and you could send that via Simbrief as well if you really wanted to. What else can we look at? So we've got the fleet of aircraft. So there's hundreds and hundreds of them. We made 5 basically of every model because there is a risk if you do a heavy landing that an airplane has to go into maintenance, in which case someone has to look at it, and it might be unairworthy for an hour or more, or even for a day, depending on what's happened to it. So we made 5 of each. Hopefully that'll be enough. Hopefully not too many people will bend aeroplanes on too regular a basis. What else? We can look through pilot reports. We can look at the live flights that are going on, obviously. And we can look at the live weather that's going on around the world. We can go and look at latest news. We can go and look at that links straight out to the user guide. And we can obviously look at our own data as well, so things we bought from the pilot shop that doesn't exist yet. Bids are like bookmarks, so when you're looking at the database of flights, you can bid on a flight, which is essentially saying, I would like to do this later. You can look at your own reports from the past. So yeah, the airline is pretty self-explanatory actually once you get up and running. We're going to do a free flight, which is the way I think most people will start out. So let's tidy up some of these browser tabs, and we're just going to go and jump into our aeroplane and take a look at the ACARS client and see what we can do. Without actually sending a flight plan to it, we can just fill it in while we're on the ground. So we'll jump inside our aeroplane. So we're in the basic Cessna 182 from Coronado. We'll go and say, please can we have the GTN 750, the TDS GTN 750. So that's loaded that in. So before I do anything with the aeroplane, I need to go and switch on ACARS. So we run the ACARS client, and here it is. And we go to the flight page. We choose our airline that we're using for this flight. So this is the Flying Club. We make up a flight number, and we can use any number we like. We don't need to use a leg or a code for a free flight because they're really for the tours. We can put a flight type in, so we'll just say this is a training flight. And we say where we're going from and to. So we are going from EGTB, which is the ICAO code for Wickham, and we're going to go over to EGTR, which is Elstree. Okay. So, and we'll just type direct into the flight plan because we're not actually going any specific clever route. And we can either we could load flight plan and it would pull it through from the airline if we'd got one. We're not going to. We're just going to go with what we've typed in. We need to pick an aeroplane that we're going to fly it in, and obviously there's hundreds and hundreds of airplanes if you are qualified to fly lots of different types of airplanes. So we can type in 182 to shorten that down, and you can see we've got 5 Cessna 182 RGs in the fleet, so we'll pick one of them. So obviously these are ones that I've not smashed up yet. And we can say how many people we're going to have on board. We can have 3 people. These are paying passengers potentially. And we'll click Start Flight. So it superimposes it onto the map, puts our little aeroplane on there, and we can then minimize ACARS and get it out of the way. We'll come back and have a look at it in a moment. So at this point we can just go and fly our flight as per normal. So let's go and put our mixture to rich, open the throttle slightly. We got the fuel is looking good. We'll go and turn the battery and alternator on, and we'll turn the engine over. Now, I didn't have the beacon light on, did I? Hopefully I'll be told off for that. You can usually get away with it as long as you're quick. Now, I didn't. So let's just show you that to see what happened. I got away with it. Yeah. So as long as you're quick, you can get away with these things. We'll put the taxi light on. We'll put the nav light on. We won't do the pitot heat until we get to the runway. I'm not going to fly this ultra correctly. I want to see. I think we'll get away with most things. It's not super tight on GA operating rules, so we'll put the avionics on. Wait for the TDS to come up, and we'll go into flight plan, and we'll just do a direct flight from Booker over to EGTR.
TARS system test OK.
Come back. Go to the map, and we've got our flight plan basically booked in. So what we'll do, we'll take off runway 24, Wickham, do a left turn and follow the GPS track over to Elstree and drop the airplane into Elstree. So we got the taxi light on. I think everything's looking pretty good. We'll calibrate the altimeter, put the yoke back on, release the parking brake, put the air tracking on. So remember, ACARS is running in the background, it's watching us. So if we impart enormous G-forces onto the airplane, or bank too hard, or dive too hard, or climb too hard, it will tell us off. If we taxi too fast, see if we can get told off for skidding on the entrance to the runway. Okay, let's just hold short here. And pop this off again, go for the landing lights, put the pitot heat on, put the yoke back on, remove the parking brake, go full throttle. While we're flying, although this is a bit of a naughty thing to do, we're going to match the course roughly, to the GPS track. Okay, so coming up through 60 knots, 70 knots, pull up off the ground. Like I said, I'm not flying this super accurately. We're just flying the route so we can see what happens in ACARS along the way. Okay, do a left turn. Just come up to 1,000 feet. We cruise along at about 2,000 feet. Now it's quite a steep turn I'm doing. I'm wondering if I'll get told off for it. Okay, so we're on generally the right direction. So I'm just trimming the aeroplane out so I can let go of the stick. We'll put the autopilot on, pull the throttle back a little bit. So we'll go to nav mode on the autopilot. We're still climbing gently, so we'll let the aeroplane continue. It's just doing pitch hold at the moment. So it's coming up about 700 or 800 feet a minute. And it'll get to 2,000 feet fairly soon. So it's obviously doing an intercept course onto the GPS track. Coming up on 2,000 feet. So when we're there or thereabouts, we'll press the altitude button and go to altitude hold. There we go. So airplane is now centering its track onto the GPS. So what's the actual direction of the track? So we're looking at about 81 degrees. So let's put the course on 81 degrees as well. Move the heading bug round that way as well. Let's see what we can do about some speed here. Let's push this right out to the edge of the manifold pressure. The propeller can come down a bit. Just trying to get it away from the edge of the... That's better. Okay, so we're quite happily flying along in the 182RG. Let's have a look outside on our way towards L Street. So what's ACARS been saying about our performance so far? Rule violations, strobes must be on. So remember I said some aeroplanes it doesn't understand, they don't have the lights, so we don't penalise you. Although it comments about it, you will get no penalties on your score for lights transgressions. So it knows, for example, if you are crossing runways and things like that. It's very good. It knows how long you were taxiing for, it knows how long you were taking off for. It's very, very cool. Yeah, it's doing the strobes violation again, look. So obviously you can see on here it's showing our progress on the route, which is great. If you've got a Simbrief flight plan brought in, it will have all the waypoints on the route as well, which is quite useful. We can search, we can see other flights. So if we go to EGTB, for example, where we just left from, we can see are there actually any other flight plans that leave there? And there are. And it will only show you the ones that you qualify for. So obviously you could load those into ACARS if you weren't already flying. You can also see bids down at the bottom. A bid is kind of like a bookmark. So when you're doing a search on the website, you can put a bid on a flight, which means I'm going to do it at some point. And then you can obviously load a bid straight in by clicking on the bids button, and it will list it and you can load it. We haven't got an OFP because we haven't got a Simbrief flight plan, so there's nothing to see here, but it would be here if there was one. Obviously we saw the world map already, and you'll see a summary at the end, so we'll come back to that. So let's just leave that on the front page for the moment and minimize it. So that's ACARS. While it's running, it's remarkably inconsequential. You just leave it quietly doing what it does and worrying about what it might be writing down. So how are we doing? We've got about 4 minutes to run. So during that last few minutes, let's have a little look online. If we refresh the front page of the website, we can see we're actually listed. So there's us. If we go and click, we can see the last reported position, which gets updated every so often, of where we are along our route. And you can also see the live flight log that's being recorded back to the website as we fly. It's very cool, isn't it? So about every minute or so, it's going to go and report on your position and the data. So let's go and minimize that for the moment, and we'll come back when we complete the flight. So we're going to fly straight into Elstree at a rate of knots. So let's go and have a look on the map. So I was going to use Bovingdon, but I decided not to. So let's go and delete that. We're doing this direct route between between Wickham and Elstree. So we could fly straight into runway 08. There's going to be a bit of a crosswind, but it shouldn't be too bad. So let's go and come off the autopilot. Pull the power back. Start descending. We've got 3 minutes to run. Just trying to wonder what's around here. I think the Leavesden Studios are over here somewhere, where the Harry Potter studio tour is. I'm not sure if we'll see them in this direction. They might be a bit further away than we are at the moment. Be interested to see if you can recognise if any of the chess pieces in the car park are visible on photogrammetry or anything like that. Probably. I don't think it's got photogrammetry. So let's continue descending. So this is obviously where things like the TDS comes into its own. You get this really nice plot. Okay, we're 2 minutes out. Down to 1,000 feet. Gear down. So I'm trying to do kind of the shortest route I possibly could that was still would have some meaning to it. So along the way, let's try some things out. Let's go and turn off the beacon light. We'll turn off the landing light. We'll turn off the taxi light and the nav lights and see what happens on the report. See now the airfield is within range or within sight. So we've got the gear down. So there's the airfield just over to the right of us, look to our track. So we'll go and fly over towards it. Let's see how many notes we can get on our PIREP. Some power on, get some speed up. This is not recommended. purely for testing purposes, obviously. And then let's bring it into land. Okay, so we've got the first stage of flaps, so it's just hanging on to the speed. Let's slow down a bit more. Now we've got the gear down, we can pull the power back without getting the klaxon in the cockpit. It's always nice.
500.
So that's the TDS shouting out the heights. Got a line of pylons here. If you've got the power lines add-on, Elstree is actually quite difficult on this side, because the pylons are just underneath the approach path. Yeah, you can see them right here, look. Okay, so we'll just drop the aeroplane in. Let's stall it onto the runway if we can. So I'll try and fly along and stall. Okay, that was on purpose. Let's see if the ACARS picks it up. If it's not a very, very definite stall, you know, like a stick shaker type big jet stall, it sometimes doesn't pick them up. Okay, let's go and park our airplane up and find out how badly we've done. Okay, put the parking brake on, pull the mixture, pull the propeller. We had all those lights off anyway. Turn the power off in the wrong order on purpose. I just want to and leave the. Actually, no. Well, let's go and turn the magnetos off. It's not going to make any difference in the Coronado, to be honest. It's not realistic, but I think it's just fun to see what we'll get pulled up for. So then we go back and we look at the ACARS client, and we go to the flight page, and we can end our flight, and we can put some comments in. So there's the report that's going to go in. So we've got, what do we get? Rule violation, strobes must be on. Rule violation, strobes must be on. Parking brake turned off. Takeoff time, landing lights. We didn't get done for the... Oh, we got done on the landing lights earlier on. Look, bank angle exceeded. There it is. G-force exceeded. Pitch angle exceeded. We're getting told off for everything. So, flight notes. Testing. The ACARS system. File flight. So that goes into the airline. If we go back over to the airline now and we go and have a look, you will see that we are not on the list of active flights anymore. If we go and look under our name and look on reports, you can see there's our last flight we've just done, and we can go and click on the flight and we can see how we've done, and we got a score of 91. Like I said, we don't tell you off too much for doing things wrong. And you got a full monetary breakdown of the cost. So it cost 370, or sorry, we made 374. It cost 328 overall. So we made a slight profit on the flight. You can see all the PIREP fields. So you can see your landing rate was 380 feet a minute. That was that drop onto the runway like a stone at the end. You get to see that flight log again in the future, which is all recorded for posterity. And you see that obviously the plot of the route you took. So that's basically it. So over time, obviously, I guess the real game is you can go and do scheduled flights if you want to, when you've got some time and you can't think of where to fly, you can just go and pick one. There's lots of really interesting tours all over the world that you can go and do. And once you've completed all the legs of a tour, you actually win an award that goes on your profile for having done that. You also get awards for the amount of hours you've filed, for the number of flights you've done as well. So it's going to be interesting going forwards to see who goes for the various awards, because it also shows within the website who has won the various awards. Anyway, there you go. It's completely free to join. Have fun with it. And obviously we will be expanding it as we move forwards. So that's Virtual Flight Online. Go and visit the website, then go to airline.virtualflight.online and register for the airline for free and start having some fun. Okay, I'll see you all again soon.